autonomy has to benefit all. It just cannot benefit the corporations. It also has to benefit society. And if we can find that fine balance between growing profits and creating long-term sustainable businesses and having a meaningful impact and helping to lower inflation for consumers, now autonomy becomes the autonomy economy. We become absolutely integrated into the global economy. And that's where I truly feel that we are going, and we are on the early stages of the autonomy economy.
Welcome to Trucking Forward with Tim and Adam, where one former engineer and one newly reinstated engineer sit around in newly comfortable chairs in an awkwardly small room and talk all things trucking and autonomy, and also make fun of each other quite a bit. My name's Tim.
My name's Adam.
And Adam, before we go into introducing our guest for today, but I've got something I want to address with you. What the hell is this?
You say that?
I can say that. It's my podcast.
Ouch. It's our podcast.
It's our.
Ouch.
That's very fair. This is a team sport.
Yeah, and that's an awful pillow is what that is.
Yeah, they've made a pillow. They've made a pillow with our faces on it.
Yep.
That's a problem.
Yeah, well, technically they said that we got promised no videos, right? We didn't get promised no pictures and no pillows.
But I feel like that was implied by no video.
Yeah, but just more things that should have been in writing.
I have learned so much by agreeing to do this, and how you should work with marketing and media and Kylie and Jason, and contracts. Contracts, man.
I mean, technically our contract is we give you money because you work here.
That's fair. We got to put stipulations in. This is fair. Getting out of hand. We have hats too. I don't know if you saw them.
I think the bigger problem here is we have no leverage.
We don't. Yeah.
We have hats?
We have hats.
A hat wouldn't be so bad. Does it have our faces on it?
No.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's better. It's better than pillows.
Okay. So what are we talking about today?
So, great question. So today, we actually have a really special guest joining us, Grayson Brulte. Welcome to the Trucking Forward podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad that we didn't see your face on a milk carton. Then I'd be really scared to be here today.
This is going to be a fun day.
That would... Wow, I hadn't actually considered milk cartons. No, I can't go there. My mind can't go there.
You'd be missing. And then they would know where to find you. Technology.
Nope. I'm shutting it down. Grayson, how about you tell us what you do? What's your background?
Sure. Besides looking for Adam and Tim on milk cartons, I'm the founder and CEO of the Road to Autonomy, and we're the creators of the Road to Autonomy Index. I built an index that tracks 38 publicly traded companies to tell what is the true pulse of autonomy, because I believe autonomy was a business. And so I partnered with S&P Global and built an index that you can follow on any finance app with ticker Autonomy, demonstrating that it is a business. And year to date, the Autonomy Index has outperformed the S&P 500, which in our opinion is the global benchmark for stock returns.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of what brought you into the autonomy space? Before I'm gonna ask you all kinds of questions about the Road to Autonomy and the index, but I really want to start a little bit further back. Like, what brought you to autonomy? What drives you to it?
What drives me to autonomy is just seeing how everything in society is going to change. I like taking a holistic look at it, where on one side you have passenger vehicles and one side you have trucking. But what are all the different ways that it's going to interact? Early on, I was very fortunate in Beverly Hills. Mayor Mirisch appointed me as co-chair of the Autonomous Vehicle Task Force of the City of Beverly Hills. So I got a really good hands-on experience from a policy standpoint of what does it look like to deploy autonomous vehicles in a city? What are all the state, city, federal regulations? What does that look like? And then expanding out of that, I'm like, this is only going to solve one part of the problem with autonomy. This is not where we're really going. You have to look at a whole ecosystem. So you have passenger car, you have middle mile with the Gaddics of the world, and then you have the trucking on your side of the world. And then on the off-road, you have the Deeres that are going to do every tractor by 2025 will be autonomous ready. I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. World Economic Forum says, oh, it's the fourth industrial revolution. I don't know if I go that far, but I believe that autonomy is going to impact every aspect of society. Why not start investigating it now? The more I investigate, the more I realize I'm like, there's a big business here. And it's going to have a massive impact on the economy. And just kind of went down the rabbit hole.
Oh man. So none of you can see the video, but I just prompted Adam to ask a question, and Adam was just he gave me this face and he was just like, no,
You said
keep
you had
going.
a bunch more questions. I was just curious what the questions are. I'm still having fun listening.
But we've gotten some critical feedback, Adam. Constructive feedback.
That's fair.
It was specific. It was
I'm enjoying the scenery
driven.
too much rather than actually participating in the path. I know. Yeah, that's
exactly
fair.
that's true. So I feel like I need to help you fly.
So I'm curious, so if I'm understanding it, kind of your inspiration behind the index, because I find the index fascinating. I love the financial aspect to it. Really, you're trying to drive to, I'd say, advocating for it as a business, understanding the business. Like, where do you see that going? Like, what are the impacts that you're hoping for that to have?
The bottom line is autonomy is investable. Autonomy is investable. If you look at the largest ETF right now tracking autonomy, it's the DRIV ETX by Global X Mirage Assets, and they have 980 million AUM assets under management. That's a small drip in the bucket. If you look at data from either JP Morgan or Brown Brothers Harriman and you see where the global investment trends are going, global investment trends are going to thematics. And when you start breaking down thematics of what does that look like, robotics, autonomy, automation, electrification, all gets put into one bucket. But it's not one bucket. You gentlemen know this. It's not one bucket.
No.
Autonomy and electrification don't necessarily, they're not going to be peanut butter and jelly. They're not always going to go together. They're going to be separate. If you look at applications for long haul trucking, most likely you're going to run diesel. At some point, you might run on the e-Cascadia for perhaps a drayage route, or if Daimler decides to go into hydrogen, you might run on hydrogen. So they're not all interconnected. And looking at all the data, there was nothing in this global thematic that was streamlined, just all about autonomy. And I built it and benchmarked it to prove to the markets that, hey, this is a business. It's not all these other pieces. Putting a refinery for lithium doesn't necessarily impact the future of autonomy. Why are you doing that? And nobody could give me a straight answer. So I do what most people do. I built something to prove them wrong.
Yeah, I think the thing I looked at the index today because the thing that I found most fascinating about it is there's been a lot of news aspects around like things that people are saying that I would say are negative in the space, or businesses that may be having downfalls, or pivotal parts of their operation that are not necessarily for the best for that particular industry. But what I thought was fascinating about the index, you didn't even really see it, right? You're still seeing this massive trend upward. I'm curious what your thoughts are around that, like how robust we are to some of the more, I'd say, pointed aspects of the news that may focus on the negatives. What are your thoughts about that not being as reflected in the index, and what does that really mean?
Negatives sell. They sell ads. I mean, that's the downfalls of negativity sell ads, and from the index is not based around that. It's based around fundamentals and financials. It's a rules based index, and you have to have a market cap of minimum $3 billion. You have to be publicly traded for at least 3 months to be considered to come on the index. And doing the financial analysis for the index, yes, there are companies, let's say company A, B, C, and D, that we can have a conversation here and say, yes, those companies are actively developing autonomous driving technology. They're actively involved in the space. But when I start pressure testing and running back tests, running hypotheticals, taking burn rates, all the aspects, if you lose this partnership, you lose that partnership, you're going to go belly up. So the companies that are in the index are ones that I believe that will be long-term winners, that have the financial capital to withstand, in the words of Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, an economic hurricane. And I believe that your parent, Daimler Truck, is one of those companies that's a very heavy weighting in the index because they have the runway and the financial discipline to do it. And the other aspect is, outside of the financial metrics that go into this, is management. A lot of companies that are focused on autonomy or autonomous driving technologies do not have good management. They have very bad management. They're run by individuals that are not focused on running a business. They're focused on building the world's greatest product. Well, the world's greatest product does not necessarily transition into the world's greatest business. And so we're getting to a point now where you have to have an individual step in. And I give a lot of credit to what Torc did. And you put Mr. Von Schmidt in charge, because Mr. Von Schmidt, in my opinion, in conversations, wants to run a business and understands the economics and the fundamentals of where you're going as a business. And that's clearly being demonstrated from Daimler's Investor Day. It was very bullish with a $3 billion of autonomous revenue projected. Very, very bullish, because that's because you're operating as a business. If you look at the companies in the index, let's take John Deere, for example. John Deere is clearly operating it as a business. As I said earlier, by 2025, every tractor will be autonomous ready. They're saying, okay, how do we take this as a business? And you start looking at other aspects of the company. Caterpillar now has 670 autonomous trucks deployed around the world, mostly in mining operations, largest deployment of any form of autonomy in the world, mostly in Western Australia. Then I started diving into more. This is not an index company, but I think it's very interesting to point out. There's a company out of Canada called Imperial Oil. Imperial Oil is operating 72 trucks in the Canadian oil sands. By deploying 72 autonomous trucks, they've been able to lower the price of barrel per oil that they're getting out of the Canadian sands by $2 a barrel. So right now, you look at Brent crude is projected to go, average analysts, we're going to go over $100 a barrel. So if you went and you told every single American or every individual around the world that if we deploy autonomy in the oil fields, we can lower the price of oil by $2 a barrel, $5 a barrel, $10 a barrel. Think about the positive economic impact that autonomy will have. All the jobs that are going to be created around it. You need an individual to refine it. You need an individual to haul it. You need an individual to bring it to the gas station. The bottom line is autonomy creates jobs, and it's going to have that economic impact, and that's what we tried to capture in the index.
So in general, what has the reception of that been in the index as a whole?
It's been fascinating. It's the phone calls and the inbound from individuals and institutions that have called, said, how did you do this? How did you figure this out? It's been extremely, extremely positive, and frankly, we're very lucky and very fortunate, and we're just getting started.
So I guess for the index, what is the next step for the index? Like, what does it look like going forward in your mind?
So the index, once we get enough market calculated data, the index will either become an ETF, an electronic traded fund, or it will become a private equity fund that will actively invest in the companies in the index and further and take the next step to prove to the world and to the markets that autonomy is a business.
So I think one of the things I was interested in, and I actually don't know if the episode's dropped yet, so you probably, you're probably not listening because we're still a pretty small shop by comparison. But we had talked a little bit on one of the previous podcasts about kind of the micro effects of autonomy and with like what it means for like the price of the grocery store. And listening to your conversation with Peter von Schmidt, you had mentioned kind of this lower inflation, and you're really hitting it on again with the lower barrels. The thing that I've always found myself wondering is you see that being returned to the consumer, right? And can you speak to like what the motivation there is like, because I think from an external perspective, there's really two options it could go, right? That's just more profits for the industry and more ways to scale that. And then there's also being the effect to the consumer. Like, what's your rationale, or what are your thought processes as to how that lowers oil versus that just becomes a larger margin for those industries?
Healthy profits. Healthy profits drive healthy companies. If let's just use hypothetical round numbers, for example. Let's say by deploying autonomy, you can lower the cost of your operations by 40%, and you pass on, say, 20% discount to the consumer. That's a win-win for both sides. For autonomy to work, we have to have public trust. And if the public can see the economic benefits of this, if you're going to Costco, you're going to Target, you're going to Walmart, and that roll of toilet paper for that six-pack is $1 cheaper because it was brought on an autonomous truck, or the price of chicken was down by $2 because it came on an autonomous truck. Think about all the positive impact that those individuals have for the industry. Now they become your advocates as we run into policy issues. How dare you get rid of that autonomous truck? I saved $52 at the grocery store today. No. Because they become our biggest advocates and our biggest cheerleaders. Autonomy has to benefit all. It just cannot benefit the corporations. It also has to benefit society. And if we can find that fine balance between growing profits and creating long-term sustainable businesses and having a meaningful impact and helping to lower inflation for consumers, now autonomy becomes the autonomy economy. We become absolutely integrated into the global economy. And that's where I truly feel that we are going, and we are on the early stages of the autonomy economy.
So how do you see how do you see companies working to establish that trust, and start to build that trust? Because we don't have deployed autonomy solutions out there right now, and we've got a very curious public on, what is autonomy going to do to the economy? How will the economy change as autonomy is scaled and really brought on? What will the effect on jobs be? So what are the different strategies that you see companies taking to approach that?
The messaging for the autonomous industry, both on the truck side and the car side, stinks. It has to be blown up and thrown out. There's no other way to describe it to you. The individual has to imagine a world where autonomy is in it, not the rationale around safety is not going to sell. The consumers, okay, I get in the car and I don't think about safety. What do I get in the car and think about? Do I have enough gas? Do I have enough charge? Am I on time for work? Am I going to be late picking the kids up? That's what the consumer cares about at the end of the day. We have to imagine a world where autonomy is integrated into it. And I'll give you an example of a company that has taken one step forward that I think that they're missing the whole boat. And I tweeted at them today, and hopefully they listen and that they do it. Look at Cruise, the GM subsidiary focused on robo-taxis. Mm-hmm. They are now the official patch sponsor. Now, Major League Baseball, whether you like it or not, I'm a baseball purist, and I don't like the patches on the jerseys, but not here nor there. Commissioner Manfred decided to do it. Cruise is the official sponsor for the San Francisco Giants patch. Okay, it's neat. You're showing an autonomous vehicle on a patch. Boring. But what if you imagined a world where you're visiting San Francisco, and by the way, their tourism economy is tanking, that you could get picked up at your hotel in a Cruise autonomous vehicle that was decorated by the San Francisco Giants, taken to Giant Stadium, not having to wait in traffic, have a special entrance and a special seat, all part of let's call it the autonomy experience in San Francisco, brought to you by the San Francisco Giants and Cruise. And then it will take you to dinner or back to your hotel to have that experience. That's what we need to do. Or, and I'll quote Walt Disney here for you. What if we plussed it? And then you're riding in that vehicle, and perhaps it's the Say Hey Kid Willie Mays. Hey, welcome to San Francisco. Let's go to the game together. That is that magical experience. It's that rice-a-roni moment. It's that San Francisco treat. People go to San Francisco to ride cable cars to take their photos with them. It's a big thing. They don't go to San Francisco to ride an autonomous vehicle to go to a Giants game. Why? Why are we not integrating it where people can imagine this world? And then why are we not integrating it where grandma can go to the senior center? Grandma can go have her gin and tonic. The grandkids could get picked up at the airport. I live here in Florida, and grandparents go in the airport to pick their kids up on the holidays. It's a big thing. Why not do that autonomously where grandma can say, okay, I can sit home and have my gin and tonic, or I can have it in the car when I get the grandkids. That's life. I'm retired. This is fun. And take it to a level where individuals can enjoy and experience it.
That's fascinating. So I
love your very accurate depiction of Florida, by the way.
Well, it's also interesting because I feel like having gotten into the space, that's a lot of why you get in the space. You think about the people you're serving, what you're trying to solve, the problems, who you're helping.
Yeah.
But I guess, Grayson, to really dive into it, really your core message is if I'm hearing it, we focus so much on the safety aspects, trying to defend ourselves. We don't actually sell the opportunities. That's really what you're saying.
Yeah. Safety's not going to sell. Is it sell to regulators? Yes. I was in Congress a few months ago, met with senators and congressmen, and I'm not going to name names here, but there's individuals in that room that said safety, and then me being me, economics, creating jobs, the economic benefit on your community. I want to hear from you. You said this is going to create jobs in my community. How are you going to do that? You caught the message. That's what the Congress and senators care about behind the scenes. They care about jobs. What is a job creation? What is the economic impact? If you look at trucking, you're going to have all these different jobs around trucking that are going to be created from the logistical aspects from the hubs. And let's look at a large trucking hub, for example, Chattanooga, Tennessee, very large traditional trucking hub. The average home in Chattanooga, Tennessee is $249,000 thanks to inflation. You have mortgage rates that are over 8%. You get a 30-year fixed. Okay, that individual is going to end up paying $560,000 by the time they pay back the mortgage with interest. More than double the price of that home. How is that sustainable? So then if we go out as an industry and say, okay, a lot of trucker and individuals live there, What if I told you that autonomous trucks can then lower the cost of inflation, can bring the cost of that house down, can bring the cost of that mortgage down? And so you're not going to have to pay double for the cost of that house. That changes the game. And then what if I go and I tell that local representative that Torc or Acme Autonomy Company would like to open a remote monitoring there, or the drivers are going to launch and ship vehicles from there? What's that impact going to be? Well, the jobs are going to start at six figures. They're going to make $100,000 in this local community. Now you start looking at Reagan trickle-down economics. Okay, so they go out and they eat dinner out more, or they go to the local arcade and they're spending money, and perhaps doing really well, they get a bonus. And this was Dooner from What the Truck reported this, where Taylor Swift gave her truck drivers a $100,000 bonus. Very nice by Miss Swift. And all of a sudden they get a bonus along what Miss Swift gave her drivers. Perhaps they invest in a local restaurant in the community. Now they're creating jobs. Think about that economic impact. So now it's not just the technology is on the coast with the elites. Now you're creating all these economic impacts around the United States, and that starts to spread and has a really positive impact on the economy, and especially that local economy. Think about that. Perhaps they get a better hospital, a better school system, because the parents are investing and they're there at home. It's all the positive benefits of autonomy. As an industry, we don't do a very good job of telling that story, and we have to tell that story or we're going to get run over. No pun intended.
What a pretty good pun.
That was a pretty good pun. You look like you were setting up a question.
I was. I was actually setting up for a transition. So, Grayson, thank you for joining us. We will be back with Grayson next week, where we're going to talk about kind of where we're going in the future with autonomy, and kind of discuss Grayson's predictions for the future.
That was a good transition, because I have a lot of questions about how do we get there.
And this has been Trucking Forward with Tim and Adam. We appreciate you listening. Please subscribe to us where you listen to your podcast, or you can look for us on torc.ai. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.